Good hair, please take my.
Welcome to Unsigned Hype episode 17. On this episode, I have the pleasure to talk to the incredible artist Twig from New York. Prior to our interview, I asked Twig which song he would play for someone that wasn't familiar with his music yet. Twig chose his song Umbra, and if you're not familiar with Twig's music yet, here's a snippet of that song before we jump into the interview. This is Unsigned Hype. The song you just heard is called Umbra by Twig, aka JUICEBOX, aka Josh Braunstein, who's joining me from LA today. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the show. Josh, why is Umbra the song you would play for someone that has never heard your music before?
Miles, again, thank you for having me. Umbra is a good tune, man. I think it's a good amalgamation of a bunch of different styles I'm trying to approach. And I got a lot of good feedback from people I sent it to, so that's why I went with it.
What was that feedback like?
I had a couple friends actually reach out and say that was their favorite track. A buddy of mine said the percussion was interesting, very textural. The bass was fat, and he said the vocal, especially the scream, I like to call it, that happens at the climax of the choruses.
Scream is associated with a bit of, I don't know, maybe not negativity, but it's something harsh. And to me, it sounded really deep and beautiful and emotional. And I'm really curious to hear from you where that came from.
Totally. I think for me, at least, the goal with music, you said something earlier off camera about how do you describe music with words? You know, it's one of those interesting cases of it's an art form that's invisible, essentially. You know, you watch a movie, you look at a piece of artwork, you can tangibly touch it and say, "Ooh, I like the stroke of that, the paintbrush or the colors that they use." But with music, it's just like you close your eyes and it kind of does the work for you in your own head. So it's up for interpretation in that sense. But for me, yeah, man, I grew up listening to a lot of pop punk. And so for me, scream is not as much a thing of harshness. It actually equates to this kind of portrayal of emotion. So I think for me, the goal is to how do I express how I'm feeling in the moment of creating with my music, and that's very much time accomplished with a vocal performance. And I think there's just like, sometimes you just got to let it out, you know? And in that song especially, the lyrics are just find a way to go. That's the scream part. And it just felt right. That song, interestingly enough, I think I actually freestyled. I wrote the lyrics down after I sang them on that song, and also for the song Time, which is rare. I don't do that often, but like those, I was just like in the zone with those two. The music told me what to say kind of moment. I like blacked out, and then I was like, oh, I just recorded that.
Can you tell the people who are listening who might have not paid attention to all the lyrics in the song what the song is about and what you were feeling at that time?
For Umbra?
Yeah.
Totally, man. So at the time I was dating somebody, and we were both each other's first like serious relationship, and it was beautiful and it was great. I have nothing bad to say about it, but I think it was one of those situations where we were kind of on different paths. And that song especially, I think I'm not alone in this as a songwriter. Sometimes we write songs for our future selves. And it's like you don't even know what you're writing about in the moment, but you listen to it later and you're like, holy shit, I was like telling myself something and I didn't even know.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I mean, you mentioned that you didn't even write it down, so there must have been quite a bit of stuff happening inside of you to let that thing out. Also, something that is so intimate, relating to a relationship of yours.
Definitely, I think something deep inside told me that like we were gonna break up, and there's a lyric at the end of the song that just repeats over and over and over again, and it goes, I already gave every ounce of me, why aren't we crossing the boundary? And it was just like one of those, like, we both gave it everything we had, but like maybe this isn't it, you know? And there's a bunch of other kind of metaphorical lyrics in that song. The first line of the song is, not the hair, please take my mind. My hair's thinning out a little bit. I'm getting older. And it's just like, yo, I'm an overthinking dude. Like, take that part. Don't take the hair, man. I want to be suavecito all day. But
what I found so interesting when I was looking at your story and your journey is obviously Twig is a new pseudonym. Mm-hmm. It's a new artistic persona of yours. So you are Josh Braunstein, the human being, and you are also the artist JUICEBOX. And JUICEBOX is one half of the group Figmore. Mm-hmm. You also have a group, a duo alongside 10-4 Raj. And now this album comes under the name Twig, under the artist name Twig, alongside JUICEBOX. Mm-hmm. Did I get that right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And Twig appeared for the first time, I think, at least the name Twig, or the song title Twig, in a release of yours in 2021, Overthin King. And I'm curious now to hear from you, why do you bring Twig back 2 years later, and who is Twig? Could you put that into words? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, I see you on your Nardwuar shit.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I think Overthin King actually in my mind is kind of like a Twig, like the first Twig record in a way. Because there's one song on there that maybe not so much, or a couple actually, but I digress. Yeah, that sound of Overthin King was definitely more in this realm of exploring more kind of singer-songwritery stuff. Definitely has a tinge of the psych rock in there, but the last song was called Twig with 2 T's, and it stands for That's the Way It Goes. And I'm a notes freak. Like, if you were to look at my iPhone, my notes app, I have like a bajillion things, super organized. I got a whole tab for just random lyrics that'll come into my head. I'll write something down. I have a tab called Ideas, where it's just a word that tickles my fancy, or a phrase, or just something that makes me be like, oh, that's cool. And like many a time I'll make music and I'll open the notes and I'll see a word, and that'll just spark an entire creation. So I'm always writing things down. And Twig with 2 T's, all lowercase, always looked really good. It always just like felt good. You know, when you see something on paper or just visually and you're like, that just like feels good. Like, but yeah, I think that just, I've been this self-proclaimed Ellen DeGeneres with the JUICEBOX stuff. And it's like, I stand by that forever. You know, sometimes I have a lot to say, and the best way to articulate that is by rapping. Sometimes I'm really sad and I want to sing a slow falsetto song. And other times I don't really have much to say, but I feel so much, I just make an instrumental. Like, all genre, it's all good, you know? Like, create from a place of just expressing how you feel in the moment. But I did it felt like this new kind of music I was making deserved a branch, another branch, to put another kind of roof over it.
I love that story, and I obviously came along the Ellen DeGeneres thing. Obviously, a play on words for the people that don't know. Ellen DeGeneres, a former talk show host, and the fact that you that you call yourself Ellen de genreless, so not really abiding to any genre and not wanting to be boxed in.
Totally.
Why is that?
I think that's like human. I don't think anyone likes to be boxed. You meet someone and they're like, "Yo, you do this and that's all you do." It's like, no, I don't. So I think it's partly that, but I think it's also, there was a point growing up where I was like, I'm a rapper and I boxed myself in, but I would sing my own hooks and I enjoyed singing, and I had people around me who were like, you do this, dude, stick to that, stay in the lane, do this, do that. And it was like, well, I don't always feel like doing that. We're multi-dimensional beings. We don't just feel happy all the time. We feel a myriad of emotions every day. I mean, in 20 minutes in this day and age, just by scrolling on your phone, you can feel a million different emotions in the span of, no time. So why would you not want to be able to express yourself fully, to not limit yourself? Like, if you feel like singing, sing. If you feel like rapping, rap. If you feel like making a beat, if you feel like playing the sitar, if you feel, just like do whatever, man. Like, experiment,
Absolutely.
enjoy, have fun with it. That's the whole point.
The one thing though that I have to say that I've noticed and that I found interesting, so the melodic approach and you singing, that's always been a part of what you do. But for people that might hear Umbra, your song, for the first time now and might have never heard your music before, they don't know what kind of skilled MC you also are. The thing is, on this release, you didn't even rap, even though on all your previous releases, there was always some rapping involved.
Yeah, I think for me, because maybe it's a double-edged sword sometimes with JUICEBOX stuff, is like, if I just told someone, check me out, I'm JUICEBOX, and they go on my Spotify, like, depending on what song they click on, they might love it or they might hate it, but there's something for everyone under that name. You just got to dig. I have a release with a buddy of mine from Germany named Leave, and it's like a drum and bass record. But if you didn't click on that first, you might have heard the record I put out called Anthology, which is like a SoundCloud greatest hits. And that's like, I don't even recognize myself on that one. You know what I mean? So it's like, with Twig, it felt like a cool way to be like, hey, like, if you like this sound, come here for it. You can find it in the JUICEBOX space, but for an organization guy like me, it feels nice to be like, cool, like I can like kind of do some filing and be like, okay, this is Twig and this is JUICEBOX and this is Figmore and this is, you know what I mean?
To me, your evolution is really incredible, and from what I know, it dates back to 2005. You finding your love for the Tribe Called Quest, and hearing Five Dog on a track and wanting to rap yourself, and you pick up a mic, and then 2008. Well, let's stick with that. Okay. Starting as a rapper. I think you even had another pseudonym back then. Another artist name was JBX, I think.
Yeah, man.
How do you start with that? Like, what was the reason for you to pick up that mic and rapping? And then with that, was that hard for you? Was that a challenge, or was it just something that you did and kind of, not cared about the quality when you started?
That's an incredible question. I would I'd have to take it back to the genesis and go a little bit before that, to be honest. My first intro to music was the trumpet, and I was in 4th grade. And I had a teacher named Mr. Piacquadio, Mr. P. That's my boy. That is my guy. We idolized this man. He was so cool. And I had a friend who was in the jazz band in 4th grade, 2 friends, and they were like, dude, join the jazz band. And I was like, I don't play anything. And they're like, it's fine. Like, we'll teach you. You'll get it. So I'll never forget this, man. I went over to my buddy Gideon's house, and he took his trumpet out, and he's like, dude, I'm going to show you something. And if you learn it, we'll take it to Mr. P, and he'll like bring you into the jazz band. I promise. It's going to take you a long time, though. You got to be patient. Okay. So he picks up his trumpet and he goes, do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And he was like, all right, like take your time with it. And he passed it to me and I did it first try. And he's like, dude, why that took me like 3 months to learn? How did you do that? And I was the guy, just like, watched your fingers, and I figured it out. So I brought it to Mr. P. I joined the band and was just obsessed with music. Me and my friends would my friend Faz, who's an incredible musician as well, met him in 4th grade. He was playing drums. We would play music all day, every day. During our lunch break at recess, we wouldn't go outside and play. We'd go into Mr. P's office and listen to jazz. And it just engulfed our entire lives and our entire business. Just music was just everything. And it was at that time where like you especially couldn't put where if someone asked you like, why do you do it? You'd just be like, I love it. I don't know. So from there, that was kind of the genesis of it, not to bring it too far back. But yeah, fast forward, my best friend Liam, who is also an incredible musician, we're in his car, or his parents are driving us to dinner, and I'm in the back seat, and he has an iPod Classic, and he is like, he's put me onto so much music and has been pretty much a mentor to me in all honesty, in terms of production and songwriting and just a lot of things. And he passed me an earphone and he played "Oh My God" by Tribe Called Quest. And this was 2005, give or take. And I was just like, what the fuck is this? I never heard anything that like made me like feel like that. And that was the moment where I was like, I want to do that. Like I heard Fife Dogs, like it's just so charismatic, and just the delivery, the beat was crazy. Like, and from there, I kind of started to rap. And coming from a place called Ossining, New York, which is that song that we were talking about earlier, it's 40 minutes north of New York City. And so there's this really interesting dynamic of like suburbia, but like so close to the city that like we were heavily influenced by everything that was going on during that time. And I will always forever be grateful to grow up in a town like that. And hence the song Ossining Obrigado, of me just saying thank you in as many languages as possible to this place that literally raised me and made me who I am. Every single nationality, creed, religion, I mean, the background of the people who lived in this town spanned across the entire spectrum, and it was beautiful. And it was one of those kind of bubble situations where I didn't know that the rest of the world wasn't like that. We were friends with everybody. There was no prejudice. There was no, like, I didn't really experience seeing racism or anything like that until like I left my hometown and was like, what are you guys talking about? So it was that kind of background and upbringing. And this is a long-winded answer, bear with me here. But you had kind of asked, was that difficult? And it wasn't, because there was no like, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. It was just like, word, yeah, rap is cool, do it. And so I kind of came up, like people would look at me and be like, what? You do what? And then I'd rap and they'd be like, oh shit. White boy's nice. You know what I mean? So it just kind of grew, and it's just like anything. I did nothing but rap. I did nothing but write. I listened to instrumentals all day. I freestyled. I just put my 10,000
produced
out.
Fairly quickly as well, right? I mean, you have the 08 tape that you put out, that you actually put out way later. Your first kind of instrumental album. Would that be accurate?
Those are all beats that I kind of put together after the fact, but they're all from around that time. And again, all credit due to my boy Liam, because he was kind of the producer of our group. And so he was making beats in GarageBand, and I was just kind of over his shoulder, like, what's that? What did you do? How do you do that? And so he kind of showed me the ropes, and then I just kind of was like, okay, cool. And kind of took it in my own direction and just grew from there.
This was Twig's song Time, and now back to the interview. I mean, you did record a couple mixtapes in the beginning, I think, like in 2009, 2010, I think.
There's no way you heard those.
No, why the bad? Like, wasn't there one like called Epiphany or something? Epiphany something?
Wow! Oh my god!
Is that was that the first mixtape that you put out?
Yeah, yeah. I sold that in high school. I was flipping CDs. It was like $5 for a CD or something.
Do you still have that somewhere?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have everything. I've ever created on my.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, man. We had a bunch of different groups. Again, the guys I mentioned, Liam and Faz, were kind of to this day still collaborators, but back then we were just like an inseparable music squad. And we went through a myriad of. I use myriad already. We went through a plethora. Went through a plethora of different kind of artist names and groups, but we always were making music together and kind of built a name for ourselves out in Austin, kind of like some hometown hero type shit. But yeah, man, people already giving feedback to that, or is it more like,
hell hey, cool, yeah, like I have your CD, and what do people say about these first records that you have out there somewhere?
I mean, we had a really, really interesting high school experience. You ever seen the movie Dazed and Confused?
Yeah, of course.
It was like that, dude. Like, I'm not even bullshitting, man. Like, we had the closest knit group of friends. It was incredible. And like, my parents, even to this day, are like, you guys were like special. Like that, it's like rare. Like I'm in a book club with my boys from high school at the moment. Like, we're all still in touch. Like, I remember going to college and people being like, "Oh, I hated high school," and I was like, "That was the best time of my life." Like,
yeah, I agree. Actually, as a side note, I have to say that's why that's what I thought was so amazing about you is I can feel and sense and everything that you've put out, both your music, but also, you know, on any platform that you're on, is that the sense of nostalgia that you have. So that's very much like connected to your 90s time and growing up and being in high school. And that's something that I personally can really relate to because I've had the same experience. I've always loved high school. And so I think, yeah, I can sense that in your music also. And I think that's amazing. That's just like a side note. But yeah, keep
to
going.
Flip the script on you really quick. What year were you born?
89.
Okay, yeah, so I'm 91.
Yeah.
So that there is that time of like the early 2000s, young enough and old enough at the same time to kind of soak up that late 90s. But that's Twig, to tie a bow on all this. Like, Twig to me is like, how do I capture the nostalgia? That's the best feeling. Is it not? You hear that song from when you were 14 or 18, whatever it is, and it just takes you back to a time and place.
That's what connected me with this album so much, is the feeling of nostalgia. That, I don't know how you did it, but you did it, you know? Especially Umbra.
Yeah, man. I don't think I know how I did it either. And that's what I love about music, is this mysterious, invisible enigma. You just got to surrender to it. I find myself being like, when the fuck did I make any of this? I don't remember doing this. And you just kind of like black out. It's like when you go into that zone, it's just like you're traversing through the portal that is the pocket, and snap, and oh wow, I forgot to eat lunch. It's dark outside, but wow, I recorded 3 songs today. Let's listen back. Whoa, when did I do that? You know?
Yeah.
That's the goal, man. Amazing. That's the goal.
Yeah. But yeah, let's stick a little bit with this. I mean, I kind of sidetracked you there because you were in the middle of telling me a story, I think. But so high school, you know, selling first mixtapes, making beats, you know, getting to know your artistic self basically, and really discovering what you can do. Then there's no real releases. I mean, obviously, I guess you're recording music all the time, but there's no real releases until like 2013, and that's kind of where you put out the song "What's Love," I think, and then so yeah, you released that song on SoundCloud, and then you release songs here and there, but your first real album, your debut LP, totally self-produced, comes out in 2017. So the thing I'm trying to get at is, in all those years of not really of getting yourself ready to release that first album, what is happening? Are you taking that time to really learn your craft, and are you evaluating yourself, like how good you are, until the point where you're like, okay, it's 2017, I can release an album now? Like, what's the process there?
Yeah, man. I think that there is this aspect of like, there's no way you would know this, but I was putting out mixtapes. And this is back in the, mediafire.com and Zshare. I was like putting up links. This was like the kind of Facebook era. Yeah, dude, those are good times, man.
Yeah.
So I think, I definitely did a bunch of, rapping and singing hooks over like industry beats. I can think of at least 3 mixtapes I did in like the college days, and, sent those links out and posted on the Facebook, and had, quote unquote, some fans back in Ossining and stuff listening and supporting. And I studied abroad in London in 2012 and did an open mic there for the first time, and like kind of spread out the music and met people. So I was always creating and making music and putting music out. I think definitely that sweet golden era of the SoundCloud days, or what was it, 2013 or so, I was definitely dropping a lot, and would definitely have to, accredit that to a lot of my success isn't the word I want to use, but I guess just kind of like helping me get out there in front of more people.
Is that the goal at that time? Like, because I understand as a creative and as an artist, you create and you want that stuff out. Some of which, some stuff sometimes not, but most of the stuff you want out there for the people. What's the motivation behind that for you? Is that I want to build a fan base, I want to get to success, I want to hit the 1 million streams? What's your goal behind all that back then?
It's funny, man. I think growing up it was completely different. I think when I was young and living in that bubble, like I wanted to have this giant, the fame and success and money and da. But the older I got and the more that I kind of realized who I was and what I wanted to do, it was more of just like, I just need to do this. Like if I didn't have me, this is how I express myself. So like if I don't have this, anything that comes from it, amazing. It's a bonus. It's a cherry on top. But like that's been more so, like if it reaches one person and they love it and they reach out, that's incredible. If it reaches 1,000, it's the same thing. Like it doesn't really, the scale isn't what determines the value. The value comes from within. Like if you had fun and enjoyed and like got off what you wanted to get off and said what was on your heart at that time when you made the music, like that's the thing for me. It's to like, I feel this right now. Let me record it and just put it out there, and it lives forever. How many times have we discovered a record from like the 60s that we'd never heard before, and then you listen to it and you're like, this is my new favorite shit? It's because someone put that out, and it's now that it's out, someone can discover it, and it can inspire, and it can be your new favorite thing.
When you mentioned the thing about, this need to express yourself and putting things out there, there's so many different ways that we can write things down, we can journal, we can do so many different things to express ourselves and share our emotions. Why is it music for you? Like, what makes music different from other forms of expression, in your opinion?
It's just feeling. It's the same. It's almost kind of going back to that metaphor of this invisible art form. It's like, how many songs have you heard or records that you've run front to back uninterrupted that you feel seen? Someone's saying, oh man, I wish I said that. That's how I feel. They said it. That's exactly like, whether they said it or there's a chord or something, it's just like the best way in my mind to like express how we feel. There's one of my heroes, Alan Watts. He has this kind of bit about the idea that words are clumsy. I actually wrote, there's an unreleased Twig song called Words Are Clumsy that'll come out someday. But it's essentially this idea of like, he says it so much more eloquently than I'm going to do it. And he has like the most badass British accent ever. But anyways, he essentially goes along to say that let's think about a guy and he's madly in love with this woman and he wants to express how much he loves her. Now, if this guy is a poet, he's going to have a way better chance of getting across how he feels to a grander population than a guy who's like not that articulate, right? But that doesn't take away the fact that if the guy isn't articulate, that doesn't mean he doesn't love this woman just as much. He just doesn't have like the tools in his toolkit to express it as eloquently, right? So it's this idea of like, words are clumsy. Words are never going to be able to express a feeling or an experience quite like actually experiencing it. But God damn it, do we try? You know, I think that's the human way, is for us to try our best. And that's through art. That's what art is to me. And I know you've been through it too. And here's my take on it in this visual or audio or textual explanation. And then let's talk about it. But words are clumsy. So we're going to talk and it's going to miss the mark, but we're going to do our damnedest to get it across.
This was Twig's song Once in a While, and now back to the interview. This is something I talk to a lot of artists about, is this idea of risk taking, and I think you have actually this beautiful story of your move from New York, where you're from, to LA, and on your, I think your first instrumental album was Circadian Rhythm, where you have this sample from a conference call, which was your last job. You used to work for a real estate company.
That's true.
And you sampled that last conference call, kind of also as like a symbolic way of saying, I'm cutting off this part of my life and I'm going to pursue music, and that's all I'm going to do. How is that risky? Is that difficult for you to do, especially you saying that it's very hard to make money out there, and being an independent artist is connected with many, many challenges. How do you navigate through that? Yeah,
dude, it's funny. I worked in that commercial real estate job. I was there for 5 years, and 4 of those 5 years I was living with my parents still. So I saved a lot of money. I would not have been able to move to LA and kind of pursue what I was doing here if I didn't do that. But I was always making music those 5 years as well. You know, it wasn't like that was like a pause in the process or anything. Yeah, definitely a risk. I mean, any move is a risk. But it's exciting and it's exhilarating and it's different and it's new and life is short and why not go for it? You know.
What made you want to do it?
Well,
could you have seen a possibility of keeping the job and pursuing music on the side? Is that not an option?
No, it was a ticking time bomb. That job was, I mean, money wise, it was incredible. I made a lot. But I was essentially like a landlord. I was collecting rents for, I worked for a commercial real estate company. It was a mall developer. And I would like sign out, leases for inline stores and kiosks and things like that in malls. So I was like collecting rent checks from people and canvassing and doing paperwork and contract. It was just like I would, I had to wear a button up and slacks, and my boss would be like, "Get a haircut, dude. You look like a pothead." And I was like, "Because I am a pothead." What do you mean, man? At the time, at least. And I would sometimes just get a glimpse of myself in the mirror and be like, "What are you doing, dude?" But then at the same time, it was like I was saving up a nice nest egg to be able to like really follow a dream. So, there's this, I think, especially now, this whole conversation of like, it's okay to have a day job or quote unquote real job, whatever that means. Just don't, I was just always making, it was never a question of like, if I do this, I can't do music. It was like, I'm doing music no matter what. But that was like, okay, 5 years, I had a lot of money. I moved out and I didn't work for a year in LA. I took a year. I just made music and met.
That was going to be my next question. Like, what's the first thing you do when obviously you make music all day.
That was a good year, man. Dude, it was amazing. I'd wake up whenever, and then I live in California now. I'm going to go drive to the mountains, go hike in a place that's 2-hour drive. I don't care. I don't have anywhere to be. Sure. Drive 2 hours, go to a random hike, go hiking. Go to the beach, go to San Diego, go up north to San Francisco, just travel and experience nature and just make a shit ton of music. And that was the first time I ever had my own like full studio set up. So that's the first time I ever like really properly by myself, because I was in a band. But like I mic'd up my drum kit. And I had all my guitars and amps, like set up my room and like got better at mixing and like really honed in on the craft. And I had the time. There was like no sense of like guilt really. It was like, go when you feel it, get in there and make it. And if you're not feeling it, great, go for the hike, go jump in the ocean, go do what you need to do I always liken it to like I'm a big Tony Hawk guy. I played Tony Hawk growing up so much.
Love it.
I always think of the special meter. And I liken that to like your inspiration as a creative. It doesn't have to be a musician. But like, I don't believe in writer's block. If your meter is at 0, go out and live your life. Go hiking, go meditate, go try a new psychedelic. What? Do whatever you need to do. You know what I'm saying? Explore. Have fun, navigate, try new things, watch movies, read books, just try and get inspired. And slowly but surely that meter's going to go. And when it reaches the top and it starts blinking and you got your special, get in the studio, get in your art pad, whatever your creative endeavor is. That's when you got to, okay, it's time. Time is a song killer. Like you got to hit when it's hot.
That's how it works for you.
Building that up. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know how, but like, I binge watch TV shows. I slack off plenty, but I also have so much music. But it's just that getting in there when the iron's hot and like being productive, and then listening to your body when it's time for a reset or a break or a rest, and you rebuild that, recharge that special meter, and then you jump back in. It's just a cycle.
You were just mentioning a couple of minutes ago, you were mentioning the word guilty. And I think what you were trying to get at was the feeling of guilt while having a side job or something else to do. What did you mean when you mentioned the word guilty?
Yeah, I think in the way that I just used it earlier, I think I was thinking more so of when I didn't have the job and I moved to LA. There was this sense of like, damn, like I got to take full advantage of this time. And if I'm not any minute not making music, there was a voice in my head that was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you have to get back in there and do it. It was this sense of like,
but why? Why do you think that voice told you that?
who knows, man? I think it's the nagging voice in my head that's just like, dude.
So this was not like existentially motivated in terms of you need to get somewhere. This was more your creative self telling yourself you need to create. Because to me, it sounded like a little bit of pressure because you don't have the job anymore. So you do have the kind of financial pressure as well, right?
Think that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a whole mixed bag of things. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think it was a lot to do with, my girlfriend at the time was working and like trying to find jobs, and she was kind of struggling a bit, and she didn't save up as much as me. And so there was this kind of, I don't have to get into that too much, but
no, it's all good. It's all good. Also, I'm not trying to keep hinting at the fact that you're financially motivated. That's not my intention.
Let's talk about. No, it wasn't anything to do with financial at all. It was more so from a place of like, you have the time now to make as much music. If you're not making it, like, you're wasting your time. And that's where the guilt was. Like, you have this incredible like privilege and opportunity that you're like, you've saved all this up. You need to be in there. And I definitely, I made a dent. I definitely made a lot of music during that time. But when I think back on it, I've always made a lot of music. That's never been a problem for me, which I like, knock on wood, thank God, it's incredible. I'm super grateful. I don't know where it comes from or why it is, but I don't need to question it. If it's working, let's just go with the flow,
I do want to get back to obviously to your newest album, Mindless Meadow, that we've talked about a little bit in the beginning. And so your many releases deep at this point. You've released a lot of music over the last couple of years, and in the process of making that album, I'm wondering what new thing you've learned about yourself as an artist.
Ooh, new thing I've learned as an artist,
or about yourself as a person.
I think it's just like doubling down on that, like Ellen DeGeneres mind state of like, if you feel an emotion, like, make it while it's fresh. Like, time is a song killer. If I'm really sad about something and I want, like, tap into that and write it and get it recorded, and then it's there, like, that moment is captured. And in effect, you can go back to it 3 weeks later and mix it and add the drums and add the bass and stuff. But that initial emotion was captured at the time that you were feeling it most. That's something I've learned to really tap into more over the past couple of years, is like, if you're feeling it and it's fresh, like, get it down then and there. Don't let the words sit on the paper and ruminate it on. To do a demo, like, I don't really ever have demos, to be honest. Like, they always turn into the final thing. Like, I like the rawness. That's something years ago I used to be way more nitpicky about, like, hitting every note perfectly, and it's got to be perfect. And like, really, perfectionism is the downfall of so much creative output, I think. And so I learned to embrace, and I think this ties back into what we're talking about nostalgia, is like, maybe I didn't hit the note perfectly, but the emotion was perfect. I'd rather have that. I'd rather have the feeling behind it and the intention to be on point than like a stickler about like, I'm a little sharp, or, or like that snare's like a little weird. It's like, I like those those mistakes are what like make interesting music and interesting choices. So those happy
that's interesting.
mistakes. I love that shit.
So you don't, if you were to hear a mistake in the final mixes, that's something that you really embrace rather than being too critical of yourself?
It depends on what it is.
Yeah.
But most of the time I lean into the imperfection as a beacon of like, this is me. It's like the most beautiful way to be vulnerable and be like, feel unique, you know?
Absolutely.
I think that's crucial. I think it's important to not, and I also, this isn't as big of a factor, but I do think about recreating things in a live setting. You get people who go crazy in the studio and nitpick and they'll auto-tune and to do this and that. And then you see them live and they fucking suck. And you're like, yo,
yeah, for sure.
if you recorded it how it was raw and how it felt like, and then, you know, again, there are certain things that call for tweaks and edits and using things as a more textural tool. Like I've used auto-tune before as like a textural tool and things like that. But I tend to lean more into like, let's just get it to feel good. Let's throw out this like, it has to be perfect. Because I think the imperfections is what makes people be like, whoa, this is cool. This is different. Like, this is unique to this person who made it, you know?
When do you know that a body of work is done? Is that possible for you to describe? Like, do you have your own way of assessing when you're done with it? Is it just
that's a good question. It's a feeling, man. I think a lot of the time, I'll make something and then you just know. When you know, you know. You know,
Yeah.
is what you know. It's just one of those things. I think that there's a lot of cases where something will be 75, 80% done and I'll give it some space. And then maybe a week later, I'll take it outside of my studio. I'll go for a hike and I'll listen in headphones. And it's just like, the goal is to get out of your head, which is so hard for me, especially. But the goal is to just get out and listen to the song, to let the song tell you what needs to be done. And that's like a form of awareness and meditation in a way that like you can listen to it from that kind of third eye or a bird's eye view rather. And be like, oh yeah, no, it needs a bass fill at this part. It felt a little boring right there. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then write it down. Okay, bass at 1 minute, 20 seconds. We'll do that. And this part feels a little weird. Oh, if I added some harmonies, like it kind of tells you what needs to be done, but you need to shut up and listen.
Yeah.
I love sharing my stuff too. That's huge. I don't think enough artists do that. I think people are way too, oh my God, dude, send your shit to your friends.
Yeah.
All of my friends are incredible musicians. I'm the most blessed guy ever. I'm friends with 10-4 Raj, Wes Wax, like all these guys. Like, it's like, I can send it to these people and I feel like I've built it to the point where most of the time I know what I need to do, but there's certain songs where I'm just like, this is like, I love this, but what is wrong with it? I can't get the mix right. I'll send it to Raj and he'll be like, yo, the bass is muddy a little bit. Cut out some low end. And I'll be like, oh my God, duh. And then I'll go in and I'll do it. And that's, sometimes we get too close to our own creations as artists. And it's like, it's okay to send it to someone and ask for help. Like, that's why I love collaborating in the sense of like sharing it with someone and getting feedback, but also creating with someone and taking the load off and having that kind of ping pong back and forth of ideas. And it's the best, man. It's the best.
This idea of being so close, artists being so close to their creations, I find really interesting because so you spend so much time working on a project and then the project is out and you share it with the people and you promote it. What's the relationship you then develop with your projects?
Yeah, I think when a record's coming out, I try not to listen. Like when it's done, I try not to listen to it. And then when it's out, when it's released again, I'll front to back it uninterrupted. And I did that with Mindless Metal. It's been done since 2020. I made Mindless Metal in like a month, maybe. That was during the pandemic. I was just bing bong, bing bong, bing bong. I was in the zone and I was feeling a certain thing. And each song I just kept making songs. And I was like, wow, this fits with the song I made yesterday. Ooh, this fits with the song I made yesterday. Ooh. And then I was like, oh shit, I have an album. So
why release it this year?
You know, sometimes things get a little backed up, and I didn't sign the deal until like a year after that anyway. And so, you know, there's just a lot of moving parts, and you want to make sure that you get the mixes right, and you got to factor in the mastering and artwork and animations and all those types of things. So I kind of stepped back from it, and it came out, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh yeah, I made that. I did that. Like, I love this record, man. Like this record really is my baby. Like, it feels like my jumping point. It feels like it's the birth of Twig. And I love this record, man. My soul lives inside of this record. And the goal is to make timeless music. And, you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like I did that with this record. I really feel very proud of this piece of work. And I'm like, I feel like you could run this 20 years from now and it'll hit the same way as it does. And that's what my favorite records do for me. And that's always been my goal, is to like make a record that inspires someone else to do something creatively, or just to make someone feel the feeling, or just make them think about something deeply and feel something deeply. I want to feel. I don't be numbed out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So I love this record, man. I really do.
Yeah, as you should. I mean, it is, as I mentioned to you earlier, it's incredible. Really incredible. It's all self-produced as well, right? I mean,
that is correct. Yeah,
you all self-produced, and this I'm not sure how well this question fits in here, but something that I'm curious about, and I'm getting to my final questions here.
Sure.
Something that I thought was amazing is the fact that you've worked with producers overseas. So you have Flitz and Suppe, for example, from Cologne.
That's my boy.
Yeah, very boom bappy. He's a great producer.
A legend in his own right, though, very well respected, and an absolute sweetheart. Meine Freunde.
How does that? So I mean, you have him, you have Vink from Amsterdam, you have someone from your time in London, for example. So you've really worked with a lot of people from overseas, and I'm wondering where this. What is it about working with producers from overseas? Like, what do they give you a different vibe that you don't really get in the US, for example?
Yeah, man. I think I was blessed enough to grow up traveling a lot. My family, we traveled all the time. And I think it's such an important part of being a human being, is to like travel and experience different cultures and meet new people and gain new perspectives. And like, there's actually a line on one of the tracks that me and Flitz put out. See if I can paraphrase. I don't know if I remember. It was essentially, if you don't contradict yourself, your position isn't complex enough. Which is a quote from a psychologist somewhere, or something like that. But essentially this idea of like, if you change your mind, that's amazing, because someone showed you something that you didn't know. You gain more knowledge, and then you like shift perspective. Like that's growth. And so whenever I've made music with people not from this country, like, it's just a different energy in the room and a different perspective. And a lot of times, like in collaboration, before we even get to music, we'll just like chill. We'll talk about life and go for a walk, have a beer, whatever it is. And then you get in the studio, and whatever you were talking about kind of seeps into the music. Now, that's not always the case. I mean, the first record I did with Flitz is called Nebel, and that was all done just through the internet. I never even seen his face before, let alone heard his voice. Like, we were just like emailing and Facebook messaging back and forth. And that's how that happened. But then now I have a friend in Cologne. I'm coming out there, man. Here I come. And then I flew out there and we made Equilibrium. So I love traveling. Yeah, man, it's the best.
Who are unsigned hypes to you? Who are artists that you believe deserve more attention and are still flying under the radar way too much?
I'll name a bunch, man. Again, like all of my friends are incredible musicians. I mentioned him a bunch already. My best friend, my brother, Liam, he goes by Wes Wax. I have a bunch of music with him. And he actually has a new pseudonym as well called Virtual Pink. He put out his first EP earlier this year. It's incredible. He's sitting on a Wes Wax project and finishing up a Wes Wax project and a full length Virtual Pink. So definitely you got to tap in with him. Another guy I met through SoundCloud, Dylan Kidd, is incredible. He a genius level musician. He's amazing. Everyone should check him out. My boy Faz Lone has a full length. He's working on a second full length. Man, there's so many people. There's a group in London called Billy Dukes. They're working on a follow-up record. They're incredible. Man, my boy Penn Francis. There's so many, man. There's so many people.
That's awesome.
It's hard.
Well, yeah. Thanks for sharing. I think it's always cool to discover new artists for sure. Maybe as a final question, the many years of you doing this and going through the highs, but also definitely some lows that independent artists go through to build their career in music. What's this all for? What do you do this all for?
Again, man, it's just to express myself and have fun. Everything else is a bonus. That's just how I need to look at it. I just want to make good music. I just want to make timeless shit and have fun doing it and connect with people and travel and just be happy.
Josh, thank you so much for this really amazing conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Danke schön.
This was Unsigned Hype episode 17 with Twig. The track you're hearing right now is called Arsenic. You will find the song in the Unsigned Hype podcast playlist, along with all other songs discussed in this episode. Make sure to support Twig by checking out his music and following him on social media. And for your weekly Unsigned Hype, make sure to also follow us on Spotify and Instagram. All the links are in the show notes below.